I met a lot of really interesting, charismatic, life-loving people in LA. And I think what characterized them principally was sort of a live for today sort of perspective. I mean, many of them were in the movie and TV and music industries. And so a lot of them were artful people in their nature. So, and a lot of us, we were very young at the time. We were in our 20s. So it was a time when, you could feel invincible and be excited about new things and exploration. And so consequently, there was a lot of exploring, and some of it became a little dark. And unfortunately, I lost a couple of friends during that period to alcohol. And it was a very sad reckoning, but it was at the very tail end of my experience there, and shortly thereafter I moved.
That was Jeff Proske, also known as Jed or Buddy to his friends. We were discussing the song I Forgot What Happened in Babylon, which was inspired by Psalm 137. I'm Shep Rosenman. This is The Rest is Commentary, where we discuss what songs inspired by the Psalms inspire in my guests. Jeff is a professor of law, legal practice at the University of the Pacific McGeorge School of Law in Sacramento, California, where he has taught students practical lawyering skills for 15 years. Before becoming a professor, Jeff practiced law in San Francisco and Los Angeles for 20 years, mostly as in-house counsel for Fortune 500 corporations. In addition to his passion for teaching, Jeff also loves to explore the world and write about it. He's also an amateur botanist. We were joined by my co-writer for this song, Julia Knobloch. Julia serves as the rabbi at Temple Bethel in San Pedro, California. In fact, she's being installed as their rabbi on November 14th, 2025. Julia is also the author of 3 poetry collections, 2019's Do Not Return from Small Press Distribution, 2021's Book of Failed Salvation from Ben Yehuda Press, and Liner Notes, which will be coming out in early 2026 from Kelsey Publishing. A former documentary filmmaker and nonprofit professional, Rabbi Knobloch holds a graduate degree from the University of Heidelberg in Romance Languages and Philosophy, and was ordained at Hebrew Union College in Los Angeles. She also spent several years as an editor at Ben Yehuda Press. Jeff, Julia, and I discuss love, loss, the search for meaning, Los Angeles, Babylon, and Zion, the power of change, biblical texts and personal experiences as inspiration for poetry and music, the importance of community in grief and transition, choosing life and finding joy in everyday experiences, and so much more. Let's start off by listening to I Forgot What Happened in Babylon, inspired by Psalm 137. I forgot what happened in Babylon. What I know is I was young and in love with Levi's son. We were liars, driving up Highway 1. I forgot what happened in Babylon. Have you seen my lover? I remember the tenderness. Where's my lover? Return me to the joy that I had in us. Return me to the joy of Los Angeles. What happened at the river? What I know is it turned dark, willows coiled, they shivered. The rain ceased at dawn, an empty space, bitter. I forgot what happened at the river. seen my lover? I remember the tenderness. Where's my lover? Return me to the joy that I had in us. Return me to the joy of Los Angeles. There is blood on the rocks in the canyons of Lebanon. I'm faint, I'm lonesome, I'm a song. Weep with me on this alien road. I forgot what happened in the lost city. My heart beats. Does it know? I recall standing at the levee. I didn't dream. The rains were deadly. I forgot what happened in the lost city. Have you seen my lover? I remember the tenderness. Where's my lover? Return me to the joy that I had in us. Return me to the joy of Los Angeles. Return me to the joy of Los Angeles. Hi, everybody. So good to see you both.
Hi, great to see you.
Yeah.
Hi, Julia.
And nice to meet Julia.
Yeah. Nice to meet Jeffrey.
So let's have a brief discussion about who's who. Jed, what do you do every day?
I'm a professor at McGeorge School of Law, part of the University of the Pacific in Sacramento.
And Julia, how about you?
I'm in rabbinical school and I also write poems.
When I did the open mic that Julia organized at Der Nister, I was like, oh, I haven't played live in a while. Maybe I'll just bring my guitar. So that's what I did. But while I was there were all these poets in the room. And I said, I'm doing this thing where I'm writing one song for each of the 150 Tehillim Psalms. Does anyone want to join me? And Julia took me up on it. It was a fun experience. Every one of these is very different. And I don't know if we'll get to it because it's all about what you're curious about. So in that way, let's get into the meat of it. In the same way that I've been inspired to write a song for each of the 150 Tehillim, including this one, I Forgot What Happened, based on Psalm 137, I'm hoping that each of the songs inspires something in you, love or loathing, questions or commentary, hope or hatred. I don't really care what. What curiosities did it inspire in you, Jed, Buddy, Jeff?
Well, when I first heard it, the lyric about going up Highway 1 and the Brazilian tone, it made me wonder about, well, what do we mean by Zion and what is Babylon here? And what does Zion mean in this moment? And I thought a lot about it. And you and I had a conversation about it because I wanted to ask you what specifically you meant by it. And since then, I've thought a good deal about it, and I thought, in some sense, Zion is sort of a state of tabula rasa, and what happens after that is maybe Babylon in itself. And
What do you mean by that?
I'm probably being a little abstract, but it's a contrast between an unformed life and an unformed set of expectations about life, and in anticipation of all the things that can be, sort of a hopefulness and a joyfulness that when you actually experience it, it doesn't deliver everything that you'd hoped and expected.
And is the failure of expectation in your reading Babylon, or is Babylon something else?
Yeah, that's the Babylon.
Uh-huh.
The Zion is, well, take for instance, my own experience of first coming to LA. And that's really what the genesis of my thoughts were when I listened to the song. I thought of LA as sort of like a playground. It was a place where you could live a Peter Pan life. And when I moved there, that's how it felt. And it was just this beautiful moment of expectation and anticipation and a whole unknown world. And I didn't know anything about LA. I barely knew anybody there. And as you may remember, one of my first experiences there was with you when we dined at Orso, when your brother hosted us.
I remember that very, very well.
Yeah. And that was an introduction to LA. And I'd never known the kind of dimensions and textures of glam life like LA can deliver. And so many things became part of my life once I moved there that I never expected and never really knew I would encounter in this life. And then there they were. And of course, it all grew a little grim at some point. But
are you comfortable talking about the things that made your life, like the fabric of your life at that time, and what made it grim?
Yeah, sure. It's a tale told a million times.
It's okay, but it's your story, and we're here to talk about you and me and Julia and our collective experiences related to the song, etc.
Well, sure. Yeah, I'm happy to talk about it. I met a lot of really interesting, charismatic, life-loving people in LA. And I think what characterized them principally was sort of a live for today sort of perspective. I mean, many of them were in the movie and TV and music industries. And so a lot of them were artful people in their nature. So, and a lot of us, we were very young at the time. We were in our 20s. So it was a time when, you could feel invincible and be excited about new things and exploration. And so consequently, there was a lot of exploring, and some of it became a little dark. And unfortunately, I lost a couple of friends during that period to alcohol. And it was a very sad reckoning. It was at the very tail end of my experience there, and shortly thereafter I moved.
Are those events connected? Like you decided, I need to get out of here for my safety, for my mental health?
Yeah, it was just so much of my life in LA revolved around my partner, Mark, and my other friend, little Greg, who passed in quick succession in 2006 and 2008. And it was time for a change for me. I needed to shake the tree. And that's when I got into teaching. I actually gave up my life in LA and moved to New Orleans to teach in a public high school after Katrina.
Wow. So, amazing.
Yeah, it was a dramatic shift, but it was a good one. It was a very useful thing to kind of throw myself into an entirely new world and an entirely new challenge.
You said useful or youthful?
Well, both.
Okay.
Yeah, it was a useful thing for me to do.
I want to hold there for a second. Julia, you're also not from LA originally. Neither am I. I'm still here. I thought I'd be here for 2 years, and then I'd move back to New York after I acquired a couple of clients. Then I met Shari, and she had no interest in going to New York. So here we are 30 years later. Is that your experience of LA? Did you have a similar glam construct in your first appearance here? No, you did not, because rabbinical school isn't glamorous?
Yeah, no, I don't think rabbinical school is glamorous, but in a good way. I wasn't drawn to this whole, I have not yet been to this, what is it? where they all have all the stars. I don't even know the name. In Hollywood. Like,
The Hollywood Walk of Fame?
Hollywood Walk of Fame. I haven't even been. I was drawn to, so I grew up in Europe and I had lived in New York for 11 years and I made the decision to come out to LA. And as I wrote in my application for rabbinical school, it's like the immigrant and dreamer in me was drawn to make it to the West Coast. I wanted to be out West. I was drawn to the Pacific Light. I was drawn to the desert and the mountains and this incredible California nature. And that's why I wanted to be here. I wanted to study rabbinics, not in a very prestigious, but nevertheless dark brick stone building on Broadway in Manhattan.
She's referring to the Jewish Theological Seminary for those who don't know.
Great school. And I wanted to be out West. I've always loved and found that part of LA that I was looking for here. There were other things, of course, that when you go to a place and you hope for something, often certain things don't come true. And that was true for me. On several instances, I tried to build connections with people that didn't go anywhere. I did not find what I had looked for of finding in the school I first went to, which is also now I'm going to a different school, still in Los Angeles. But the school, and it's interesting, rabbinical school takes 5 years. I was here 2 years. Then I was 1 year in Jerusalem. And now I'm back. And I feel kind of like this is LA 2.0. And I'm very excited for it. And even though leaving Israel was hard, to be back here, like just a couple of days ago, I went to the beach. I took the bus because I don't have a car right now because I sold my car before I left. And I took Santa Monica, walked all the way to Venice, walked down the hills towards the beach. And I was so happy. I was thinking, this is so beautiful here. I live here. This is amazing. So I want to go to the lyrics. Like for when we were writing the song, the lyrics are based of lyrics that was a draft that I had written many years ago, long before living in Los Angeles, or even thinking that I might live in Los Angeles one day. And they were different, but the skeleton is the same. When we were writing them and working on them, Zion is not even in these lyrics. It was in the original ones. And Los Angeles is the Zion, right? Because as a good rabbinical student, I was playing with all these return to a place of I think, completeness or harmony. And as Jed said, well, it's not complete. Things are, what did you say? Tabula rasa. I feel like that. I had a tabula rasa in Los Angeles and I was exiled, not to Babylon, but to Jerusalem. And now I'm back.
My experiences of arriving in Los Angeles were very similar. I mean, I came out here to be a Hollywood lawyer. So the glamour piece, that was an important piece. It was very much part and parcel going, the idea of going to premieres and working with actors and directors and producers and all the fancy that comes along with that. I very quickly learned that was not, yes, I work with a lot of very fancy people, but that's not what drives me. I prefer like people who want to go for a hike or a walk on the beach. And I'll go to premieres when my client says, oh, I'd love to have you there. But in the absence of that, I just eschew all of that. Thank God I've been able to build a practice with clients who are somewhat like me. They're very gregarious, but they need their alone time. And when they want to get together, it's in small groups, not thousands of people. Though I went through a phase where I was really interested in growing big communities, particularly with my work with Limud LA. That's an organization about Jewish learning that I did for a long time. I still love the Limud organization, but I've had enough organizing. I've also experienced the darkness, when in my case, it's friends who died mysteriously without any awareness of alcoholism. It's friends who died by suicide, who had massive kind of drug and alcohol and other addictions. I also knew for a brief minute, or here or there, both before marriage and after marriage, kind of loneliness that you can only feel in LA. But I've also found the joy of Los Angeles in communities. When did you arrive here, Jed?
I moved to LA in 94.
Right. So it was a couple of years after I did. So here were my sum total of people that I knew in LA. My brother, who I was not going to socialize with. I mean, I would see him, we would get together for meals, but, his socializing consisted of going, I don't know the names of any of them, but to the various clubs, dance and otherwise, in West Hollywood. And that was just not my scene. Peter Kaufman, who I believe you call Serafino. And Jeff Rawitz, another law school classmate of ours. And finally, David Schwartz, who is literally my oldest friend. We went to nursery school together, born the same day. Our mothers were in their rooms next to each other in the hospital, the whole thing. That's it. I knew no one else. And in those first months, it was kind of lonely. I arrived in September. I didn't start working at the firm that Sherry and I met at until June 1st. That's where clusters of relationships started growing. But as we started building a life together, we started finding these groups of people, and we're still in touch with many of them. I think that that's the palliative to the darkness. You have to be in relationship. And if part of your darkness is losing important relationships, I can see the strong desire to go elsewhere.
We all have friends who died here. The first time I ever came to, this has nothing to do with the song, but I just wanted to add that because I was like, wow. Because the first time I came to LA ever was for the funeral of an ex-lover or ex-boyfriend of mine, who I had been dating like in the 1990s, a long time ago. But it was a long thing. Every time we saw each other in the early, I think it's called aughts, there was always something. So he was a person who I'd known for many years and with whose family I was and still am friendly. So he died in a motorcycle accident.
Oh, yeah.
So that was in 2016. And then his sister and his mother, they were here, and there was no question for me that I was definitely go there. So I flew out to LA for this memorial service. And I remember sitting inside the house, his apartment, where his family was going through it. And there was so much mourning. There was so much wailing. There was so much grieving. And outside there was this brilliant California light. And, the clattering of the palm fronds, just like typical, the sound of the silence in Los Angeles. The lemon trees and the pink flowers and the palm trees. And I was sitting in this darkness. So I just want to add that is interesting that we all in different ways have this experience with death. LA.
One of the things that ultimately I love about LA is notwithstanding everyone's perception or the rep it has that it's kind of a city of plastic, I find it to be very real. Like my friends, my communities, Jewish and not, are interested in real things.
The poem was old. It was an old poem that had been sitting in a drawer for several years. And when I send it to you, it was always said, this is something to share and we may or may not use it.
1,000%. But I loved it. And I said, let's find a way to use it. So could you read the first verse?
I don't remember what happened in Babylon. What I know is I was young and in love with Levi's son. We were liars. Our hearts sang in unison.
We changed don't remember to forgot because it's just more singable to me. I forgot what happened in Babylon. I don't remember what happened in Babylon. It's too much of a mouthful. What's the final lyric on that one? Driving up Highway 1, right? Our hearts sang in unison. Songwriting can be purely inspirational in the same way that poetry can be purely inspirational. What does my heart want to say? You put it down and it's just about getting it on the page. It's not about the sources. It's not about other things it makes you think. But because this project is specifically inspired by Tehillim, that's the Psalms, I'm always looking to understand the connection between the song and the psalm. I don't remember what happened in Babylon. if you've read the psalm, then you know that the psalm opens with the words, Al Naharot Bavel, by the rivers of Babylon. Bob Marley, several other performers have kind of adapted this psalm. So we are not the first songwriters to do so. And of course, it has Zion right in there. By the rivers of Babylon, we sat and wept as we thought of Zion. And so your interpretation, Jed, is spot on. Babylon was a place, but there is this thing of destruction that we all experience. And Zion is not only that which is at the bottom of the matrix. This is our aspirational place. And it's our aspirational place in which we live, which is fascinating. I asked the question on the line, I was young and in love with Levi's son. Did you have someone specific in mind here, or is this a mystical, or midrashic reference I'm not seeing?
When I do things that riff off of, in this case, biblical text, I think I do want to make it a midrash more than just that it's. I think one word that comes up is in whatever psalm or whatever text is not enough for me. So I wanted just to be a midrashic sort of a new midrash of this psalm.
Midrash is either rabbinic imaginings to fill gaps in the texts, or it comes from a tradition that Moses explained this to the Israelites, and the rabbis are just giving over Moses's interpretation. I prefer the first kind of summary because there are often conflicting interpretations, though there's something beautiful about the idea that Moses said, well, here's what it could mean, and gave you 17 possibilities or 70 possibilities. And that, too, I think, is reflective of the concept of studying the Torah. In fact, there's a midrash that talks about the affliction that Pharaoh did to the Israelites. One of the things he did was take away their scrolls. And that's the metaphor for studying Torah. The Midrash specifically uses the language of play. So, if you can't play with your scrolls, that's affliction. This is, I think, why people refer to the Jews as the people of the book, because we love to play with this. And that's what Julia and I are doing, and what Liz and I are doing, and what I do on my own, and what I'm doing with various other co-writers. Jewish, not Jewish, Jewishly experienced, not Jewishly experienced, it doesn't really matter. Encounter the text and see what comes of it. We filled in some gaps of our own, Yes, we placed it in LA, essentially made Los Angeles Zion. And in fact, it's returned you to the joy that you described on our first listening to you about this, Jed. That was the Los Angeles you knew and loved. We went hiking in the Santa Monica Mountains, and I feel like we went to the Joshua Tree at one point.
I really looked at it as this was a song of a beautiful love that was lost. And Los Angeles was the place where that love flourished.
Yeah.
And Babylon is the place where it was gone. What happened to the love that was so beautiful, that was delivering? That was the impression that I got. And I abstracted from that Los Angeles was this kind of platonic oasis.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Los Angeles came up actually as songwriting often goes. It's we needed a rhyme we needed something to echo us, and then went to return to, and then like, why not Los Angeles? Once that element came in, it sort of tied the whole thing together, because it had these two poles, exactly as you said, the platonic place of an idyllic ideal of a love, and then Babylon as the place also in biblical literature where all that love was gone. The line from "Where's My Lover" is a line from, that's why in the original it was "My Beloved," because it was still more an exercise in like using biblical language. The "Where's My Lover," where have you seen my beloved, is a line from Shir HaShirim, from the Song of Songs, when the woman is running through an already almost a little bit dystopian Jerusalem. It's still intact, that Jerusalem, but there's the danger of losing the love. There's the danger of losing Jerusalem. And she runs past certain watchmen and she asks, have you seen my beloved? Have you seen my lover? And it is echoed in another text that is called Lamentations, where in fact the woman, the city the personified woman as the city are lonely and have lost all their love. So when I was writing that, those were the thoughts I had in mind. So then together with Shep, we brought it into this sort of modern story that very much draws from all these biblical connotations. But as you said, you nailed it so perfectly. We were able to put this into a modern, narrative. It just became its own thing without it being so much rooted in reality. I want to say also about like how poetry can sometimes be prophetic. It's incredible. The same thing with we needed something cool, something good about like driving up Highway 1. And Shep suggested the Highway 1. And I was like, yeah, sure, that is amazing. That fits so well. 1.5 years later, I was driving up Highway 1 and it was an empty, bitter space because it was sort of it was like the very, very bitter end of a love that never lived. And then I was thinking of that song. I was like, I can't believe it. I'm driving right now with a person up Highway 1 and it is bitter and empty and the willows coil. It was just like that. It was written 1.5 years before that happened. It's so crazy.
So now we need to write a requited love song.
Right. Yes. Los Angeles 2.0.
Let's have a happy ending.
My dad loved Tehillim. He recited it every morning and every night, probably afternoon as well, but he was at the store, so I wouldn't know. But at a minimum, I would see him reciting it at night, and he was very passionate about it. So I was like, well, how can I honor their memories? I know. I'll write a song inspired by Tehillim that's also connected to a story from my mom. That's when I just started writing Tehillim songs. I was like, okay, I did one of those. Let's see if I can do another one. And then I started thinking about what it is that I'm trying to do. Like, why am I doing this? And we're at Dayenu, to use a Passover reference. We're like, okay, this is enough. If I just write this for the sake of writing this, like that's all that matters. The experience of engaging with the text and writing songs is enough for me. But what am I going to do with them was the question various rabbi friends asked. The answer for a very long time was, I don't know. And now after much prodding and much thinking, here's what I'm doing with them. Turning them into this podcast and having these conversations with friends. And that's why I ask you the inspiration question. What does it inspire in you? But Sherry Hirsch, another friend of mine, asked, well, why? Who's your audience? What do you want them to get out of this? Why are you doing this? And that really made me stop and think. And here's what it boils down to. I'm having these conversations as a legacy project in which you are participating for my kids. So as Sherry described it, this is my musical, ethical, Jewish study or Jewish text study exploration through conversation of, it's my ethical will is what she said, my ethical will. Ultimately, it's an exploration of my values and my friends' values. And in that way, my kids gets to know me and they get to know you. And they will have full access to the unedited versions of these conversations, and I will post shorter versions for the rest of the world, just because why not? Those in turn will lead to further conversations, which my kids can learn about as well. Hopefully people will comment and post responses and whatever. But again, the ikar, the essence of this is, thank you for participating in a legacy project for my kids. They may not listen until after I die, but that's okay too. I want to grab some of the language that Julia used, which is the song is in part about the danger of losing love. Are you comfortable talking about what losing love is like in this context? Jed, are you comfortable diving in? So when Mark and little Greg passed, Mark, you described as your partner, little Greg as a friend. Is that right?
Mm-hmm.
But obviously you can love your friends too. So losing a friend is a loss of love. Is the loss different when it's a lover versus a friend? Softball.
Yeah. Mark was my soulmate. He was a planet around which I orbited, and vice versa. So I think our universe we made together. So when he passed, he took that with him. And he took a whole reservoir of memories that he and I shared together with him. So there's a loneliness that comes with that that's very hard to come back from. You know, when we're left with that knowledge that you're the sole receptacle now in existence to speak to the fun, to the pleasures, the love, all of the things that you shared and built together. It's a very lonely thing, and it was sort of crippling for me when he died.
How long were you together for?
I guess it was 15 years.
Wow. That is a long time. And when did he pass?
2008.
What did you do to help yourself through the process? What do you do?
Well, what I did then was I wasn't teaching at the time. I was practicing law. I was general counsel for a real estate company in Westwood in Los Angeles. So I hadn't really taken time to think about next steps. And when Mark got sick and I had to take care of him for the last couple of years of his life, it gave me time to think about next steps. And so I decided to try teaching. That's why I ended up in New Orleans. I joined a Teach for America offshoot called Teach New Orleans, Louisiana. It was kind of a throwing myself in the deep end to, make myself do something, because not doing anything was not going to be a very productive way of existing.
And was teaching specifically connected to Mark in some way, or was it just your life was full with him and you wanted to create a fullness for others?
Teaching was something I always wanted to do, and being in the practice of law in the way I was practicing it for so long was never really something I aspired to. It just sort of happened. And I enjoyed it while it happened for 20 years. But at some point I realized I needed to have a life of the mind that my career path wasn't giving me. And I needed to do something that was sort of in the nature of an eleemosynary act, I guess, or a giving sort of thing. And I wanted to teach. I always wanted to teach. So my first foray into that was to teach high school in New Orleans, and it was kind of a nightmare, but it was beautiful. The kids were great, and I didn't get scared away from New Orleans by the kids in my classroom. I got scared away from New Orleans by the rain, the bigots, the anti-Semites, the homophobes. It was a pretty grim period in New Orleans then. A lot of the people I knew and was introduced to then were challenging for me, and I couldn't wait to get back to California. So, happily, I ended up in Sacramento, where I just happened to find an old friend who I used to work with in San Francisco, who was teaching at McGeorge. That's how I ended up.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Well, that's a happy convenience, and that's sometimes what comes out of, one door closes, another door opens. Trite as that is, in Hebrew, we say mishaneh makom, mishaneh mazal, which literally, there's no literally, there's so many meanings of the phrase, but the normative way that phrase is understood is if you change your place, you change your luck. When we say mazel tov, we're saying good luck, or good astrology, good astrological symbols. The beautiful thing about that particular phrase is, so mishaneh doesn't only mean change, it means learn or teach, like Mishnah, which is a rabbinic codification of the law. And makom doesn't only mean place, makom is one of the names of God. So when you say mishaneh makom, mishaneh mazal, you're not only saying that if you change your place, you are changing your luck, you're also saying if you teach God or you change God, you change your luck. And when you combine the two, the act of moving either creates a new path for yourself, or to the extent that you believe in God, forces God to create a new path for you. The move from LA to New Orleans, the move from New Orleans to Sacramento were both you changing your luck, changing your life. Those are massive. I'm asking the more discreet question, because grief is really hard, whether it's the grief over the loss of a person because they died, or grief over the loss of someone because they're now out of your life. I mean, there are people, I guess, who don't manage grief. You know, I have someone I used to work with who, you know, his dad died and he was back at work the next day. I can't wrap my brain around that, but there are people who are wired that way. The rabbis give you a whole recipe of things to do when you're mourning a loved one. You know, on the first day, you have no obligation to do anything, no obligation to follow the commandments, or at least until your loved one is buried. Then you spend 7 days sitting Shiva, during which you don't take cold showers and you don't cut your hair and you don't cut your nails. You certainly don't drink. You don't go to parties. Then it's 30 days. You can shower according to some traditions, and you know, but you don't cut your nails and you don't cut your hair. Then after 30 days, you can cut your nails and you cut your hair, but you still don't go to parties or movies or and so on for 12 months. And at the end of 12 months, the rabbis say, you're still in grief. I'm so sorry. Get back to life. Start going to movies, start going to parties. That's the basic theory of grief. They give you a way of thinking about the fact that in this year, you are different. And you know, some people just ignore the rules, and other people, kind of myself included, take them too much to heart. And then most people, I think, kind of find the right balance. But none of that was enough for me when my parents died. I had to journal. I had to, you know, my friend Sean Fieldsmeyer, also a rabbi who teaches at Milken in LA, she asked me a question that kind of changed my mourning process. She said, how are you going to concretize your grief? Like, I mean, I know what the word concretize means, but I don't understand what you're saying. And she said, what does your mother love to do that you want to do so that when you do it, you will feel her loss and help you grieve? So my immediate response was, I am not putting on pink fuzzy slippers. Because that's my mother loved her pink fuzzy slippers. She also loved playing mahjong, and I was too depressed and too much in grief to do something as joyful as playing mahjong. You know, so I put together a class on prayer, and I invited all my rabbi friends to come teach it. Now, my mother wasn't a traditional Jewish prayer, but I came to that concept because every Friday night there's a tradition when women and men, but in particular women, because they're primarily responsible for lighting candles before Friday night. My mother would sit there like this, you know, and so for those who can't see what I'm doing, her eyes were covered and she's shuckling, she's shaking, and she was there for like 15 minutes. And you know, what's she doing? She's praying in her own words, but and maybe she used traditional words. I don't know. It was all whispered, but those moments were very powerful for me. And that's why I said, she connected to prayer. That's something I can connect to right now. And so I did that. So all that's a long wind up. What did you do to get through the grief?
Well, I did write a lot. I write a lot in my journal, and I tried to spend time with people who could remember Mark with me, and remember the great things, because he had it was a very long, lingering, painful passing. It lasted for over a year or so. It was not the way I wanted to remember him, because there were many years of just extraordinarily fun things and beautiful love that I wanted to think about instead of that. So just getting beyond that year or two of terrible, traumatizing memories of hospitals and ICUs and hospice and all that stuff, that took some time, took a lot of time. And I needed to be around people who shared the sense of loss, knew Mark and understood what the magnitude of that loss was. And thankfully, there were several of those people around. So I tried to spend as much time with them as I could.
Back to the community being a support network, a healing, and just a place to have fun as well as all these other very key things. One never gets past it, but are you able to kind of fully function and kind of hold the responsibility of, as you put it, being the sole receptacle of memory?
Yeah, that's a good question. Full function. When you lose somebody who's that bonded with you, I don't know that you ever, well, I don't know. It's probably cynical to say, but I don't know that I could open my heart to another person the way I did to him.
Mm-hmm.
So,
right. Or you just haven't met that person yet.
Yeah, that could be it too. But it's just hard to imagine doing that.
Yeah, I understand. Sherry and I, our biggest fight is, okay, which one of us can go first? We're both very worried about it. My parents used to have the same fight. You're going to go first. And then my father would say, you're trying to get rid of me. Julia, how about you? It was a big question, so you can answer anything you want there.
I have not lost someone. I mean, I just told a story about this friend who died in LA, but it was very long ago that I had been involved with him. So I haven't lost a person who was a partner, who was a romantic partner. I think the theme of at least the last 10, so I just turned 50 last.
Happy birthday.
2.5 weeks ago. Thank you. I think the theme of my past decade was the absence of love, like the absence of reciprocal love. My 40s started with my divorce proceeding from a man who had not loved me. I don't want to go in there, but there was all sorts of cheating on me. So that took a while to get over that. And then I was actually dating the person who inspired the phrase Levi's son. It doesn't matter, which is true. Often it doesn't matter. But since we're talking about that, this guy's last name is Lewis. There's a connection to the Levites who were Levites. Like there's all, like, so I was playing with that. It's just interesting sometimes how you build words and situations in your poems that are in one way inspired by the reality, but ultimately you turn them into something different that works in the reality of the specific piece that you're creating. So, and then for the longest time, I've really loved someone very, very dearly, and we still are friends, but we never became like an official couple. And he also didn't have the same feelings for me as I had for him. I know that I'm an important person for him, and he's an important person, and there was love. I think there was love, but there wasn't that kind of love. There wasn't that kind of love that you experienced with Mark, or that Shep, you and Cherry have, and I think the absence of this love for specifically with this person, but overall, I think in most of my life, has been really a theme of grief. But it has also inspired me to write a lot of nostalgic, longing love poems. And they have sort of given me love in a way. Like I have experienced love that I didn't experience in actual real life by living them out in my thoughts, or in finding beauty in putting together these poems in general. And to be clear, I don't want to say that there hasn't been love in my life. There has been, but when I turned 40 and I was getting divorced, and people said, this is going to be the most amazing decade of your life. It's going to be so redemptive. You're going to find someone new. You're still going to have children, maybe only one, because you're already past 40, but none of this happened. And it was very, very, I think the 40s, especially the last years of that decade that just ended, was a long, painful, grieving process of letting go of several things. I always wanted to have children, minimum 3, minimum. And well, I don't. And it's always going to be, I think, a point of sadness. But interestingly enough, I think that grieving process, now that I'm entering this new decade in the same place, even though in a slightly different place also, I feel maybe this is going to be the best decade. So when Jed was saying, when you were talking about the container or the recipient of joint memories, and you, like, that was really, because I think this is what love also is. And I think this is like what it's so hard to let go of a person who you love. Also just letting go of accepting that you're not going to be in a partnership with someone, not through death, but it is like death. Not being loved back is like, I think, a little death. And when you lose someone in whatever way, it takes away part of you. And I think this is why I think Judaism is very, very much aware of this, that there's so much about love and remembering. It comes up in so many different instances. And it comes up in this psalm. And I think that, like, the love for Zion, the love for Jerusalem, the love for Hashem, the love for life. I think Judaism is like, at its core, the expression of love for life. And you can't have love for life lives with memories. This is why if I forget you, Jerusalem, may my right hand be cut off, right? Like, if I forget you, my beloved person with whom I share all of these memories of my life, then what is then there's nothing. Then there's tabula rasa. It's like to come back to it. So those are things I feel very intensely, and even though there has been a lot of sadness, but not because we look ahead and we think we're gonna die. Shep, you are doing a legacy project so that your children can hear your voice and your thought and get to know you even better than they might have gotten to know you whenever they're listening to this. And we want to be remembered. Like, there's a line, remember us for good, in the liturgy. Like, you know, and in the English, you can have a word play with it, not only for the good things, but remember us forever. So when memories make people not entirely fade away. So if you are like me, like looking, you know, who's the person who has shared, who, when I may be in a long, like, still many, many decades ago, but we want to know that there are people walking the earth who remember us for good, who have enjoyed being with us, and if only for a moment, and who maybe talk about that with their friends. And if you don't have your biological children, the sort of natural persons who do that is less. So it's hard. So I've been thinking about that a lot, but which is also why I chose the rabbinate. Part of, like, if I'm not going to be the person who passes on tradition to my biological children, or who knows, maybe I'm going to meet someone who has, you know, at this point, college-age children or whatever, but, you know, all good. But I want to be part of the tradition. I want to be part of the chain of life, in religion or not, you know, but there's a desire that we all have. We want to be part of the chain that goes on. And I'm doing it with loving my life and the friends that I have, and even, thank God, like, I have no contact whatsoever with my ex-husband, and I don't think that will ever happen, and which is fine. But this other person that I mentioned, I do think that we will always know each other, and that's a certain kind of love that lives on also. And I love Los Angeles, and I have joy in Los Angeles.
You both continue, notwithstanding these different types of losses, to have a joy for life, an immersion in it, whether it's through your teaching or whatever you're doing in your spare time, including writing or going to, the beach or, hikes or et cetera, et cetera. I'm highlighting it because we talked a little bit about the process, and in your case, it was journaling, Jed. That was a lot of it for me too. But I think just living and acknowledging your different status is also part of the process. And, when I think about this guy that I used to work with, he didn't acknowledge his different status. He just went back to work as if everything was the same. Whereas you've each made major changes, yet you continue to do those things that allow you to choose life. And I use that language very specifically, and Julie's nodding her head. At the end of Moses' life, right before he talks about the Torah being a song, he says, I place before you this day a choice. And simplifying, he says, choose life. And, the rabbis typically interpret that as choose life, meaning do the mitzvot. But that's not freaking what it says. It says choose life. It sounds like you are, to me, like you are both choosing life in a massive way. I presented Julia with 3 choices, and I think she chose Bossa Nova, so that's how we got Bossa Nova.
Beautiful.
Yeah, I mean, and Shep was like, it's such a sad song, and it can't have this happy tune. And I'm like, hey, you chose it. You one of the things you offered, so you must. And also, I mean, there are many songs that have very sad lyrics that still have an upbeat song. Also, it just fits so well to this idea of driving up Highway 1. It's sort of, it's just a good sort of driving along the coast kind of beat. And also, By the Rivers of Babylon, the pop version I grew up with in the 70s is a very upbeat tune. Not that that's a great song, but it's certainly By the Rivers of Babylon.
I don't mind juxtaposition, but it always needs to have like a hook that connects you back to joy. And the end of the chorus certainly does that. And so my blessing to the two of you is that you return to the joy of Los Angeles.
Thank you.
And I thank you both for kind of spending the time with me. This was a great conversation. I really enjoyed it. And I look forward to writing songs with each of you.
I do too, Shep. Thank you for taking the time.
I'm happy to do this again.
Awesome. Thanks so much for listening. Special thanks to Jeff and Julia for joining me, to Julia for co-writing the song with me, to Emil Stern for his help in producing this episode, to E-Rose for his help in producing the song and the episode, to Jessica Chana Swedler for her help on social media, to Liat Silvera for designing the podcast logo, and to my wife, Shari, who gives me the time, space, and support to make the music and this podcast happen. You can find I Forgot What Happened in Babylon and all of the other songs in this song cycle on most platforms that stream or download music, including Spotify and Apple. In the next episode of The Rest is Commentary, I will be talking with Texas-born and river-raised country singer and songwriter and Shabbat services leader, Joe Buchanan. Check out his awesome new album, Heaven and Earth, wherever you buy or listen to music. You don't have to be a country fan. It's really awesome. There's so many great songs on it. In this episode, we're going to talk about music's power to build community and provide solace during challenging times, the significance of storytelling in songwriting, the role of spirituality and personal beliefs in shaping one's artistic journey, silence, immigration and belonging, the divinity of basic human actions and interactions, and yes, the episode includes 4 songs performed live, 2 from me and 2 from Joe, and there's so much more. Please join us.